Hello there, friends, and welcome back to the Fall Joann Stitch-Along with Yarnspirations. I'm your host, Marley Bird, and welcome to week 2 of the 4-part series for the Bernat Textured in Stripes Knit Cocoon Cardigan. By this point, you should have completed your homework for week 1, and you are ready to continue on with the panel for week 2. As always, the instructions can be found in the link right down there in the video description box. Go ahead and grab that free pattern, your homework, and your materials, and we will jump into this week's instructions. The week 1 instructions had us make the Mosaic check pattern. And for week 2, we will continue on and we will work the Mosaic stepping pattern. Now, at first glance of this chart, you might think, oh, we're just going to have some diagonal stitches. But what's really going to happen is as we work these slip stitches, our work is going to look like it's a stair step. This stitch pattern is so awesome, and it just uses that same slip stitch technique we learned in week 1. So all you have to do is continue working those slip stitches and follow along with the pattern. Let me go ahead and get you started on this fun stitch pattern. Okay, week 2 will be a continuation on week 1. At the end of week 1, you finished after a right side row with your main color. You've cut your color A and you're ready to continue on. So when we turn our work here, we do want to continue on with a purl row here, but there is a little caveat. If you are making the smallest size of the cardigan, we need to increase 2 stitches. If you're making the middle size, we need to decrease 1 stitch. If you're making the largest size, you can just purl this entire row without any changes. The reason for these changes are to make the stitch pattern multiple work for all of the sizes. In order to do that, let me go ahead and show you how to do that make 1 purl and how to do a purl 2 together. Now, in the instructions, it tells you exactly how many stitches you will purl before you do your make 1 purl. Because I don't have the same number of stitches as you do for the smallest size, let me just work a few stitches in. When it's time for you to do your make 1 purl, you're going to grab that strand of yarn between the 2 stitches. So grab that strand of yarn. You could go from back to front. You could go from front to back, whatever works for you. I like to do from front to back when I'm doing a purl like this. And then I bring my yarn forward and I will purl it through that front leg. Okay, did you see I went back up and around so that way it's easier to get into that? And so I will purl it through that front leg and off, and that's a make 1 purl. If I wanted to pick it up the other way, let me show you. If I pick it up from this direction and come up, I now want to purl through the back leg. So I will come over here and go through the back leg and purl it. Both methods will work for you, and what it does, it maintains the stockinette on the other side, but you do get that extra stitch. So that's how you would do a make 1 purl. And for the smallest size, you'll end up doing 2 of those. Now for the middle size, we actually have to decrease a stitch, right? So let me get over a couple stitches. And what will happen is it's going to tell you to purl X number of stitches, and then it says to purl 2 together. And it's really as easy as bringing your yarn forward and purling 2 stitches together. That's it. Let me show you one more time how to do that. I'm going to take my right hand needle, go into that first stitch, go into the second stitch, and then purl them together and off. And you only have to do that once for the middle size. For the largest size, you could just purl all the way back. And when you get to the end of your row, that's where you will continue on with your 2 transition rows using your color B. All right, let's go ahead and continue on. Okay, for the 2 transition rows, you will be dropping your main color and picking up your color B. And we want to go ahead and knit 1 row and then purl the entire row back. This is a great opportunity for you to count your stitches just to make sure you have the correct stitch count on your needles for the size you are making. go ahead and get these 2 rows complete, and we will move on to row 1 of the mosaic stepping pattern. Once those 2 transition rows are complete, you're ready to move on to the mosaic pattern. So we will go ahead, drop our color B, grab our main color, and we will jump in. Now, if you remember, we are going to be slipping stitches just like we did before, but there's a couple differences on this stitch pattern versus the old one that I want to point out. The first one is, as we begin row 1 here, we're going to knit 1 stitch, and then the multiple is slip 1 stitch purlwise with yarn and back, and then knit 4. Because the stitch multiple for this pattern is, it's 5 stitches plus 2. So this is our multiple, slip 1, knit 4, okay? Slip 1, knit 4, and you would do that all the way to the end until you get to where you only have 1 stitch left, and then you would knit it, okay? Now, when we turn our work and work back for this one, if you remember when we were working with our week number 1 instructions, we kept all of the main color stitches in stockinette. For week 2, we keep the main color stitches in garter stitch. So when we turn our work and we have the main color in our hand that we're going to be working with, you will be knitting these stitches on the wrong side. So I want to knit all of my stitches that are of the same color, or if you think of it, I'm knitting 5. Then I'm going to slip 1 with yarn in front, and then knit 4, slip 1 with yarn in front, and then knit my last stitch. When I turn my work, I will now be dropping my main color, picking up my color B, and I will be working with my color B. Now this is the second difference. If you remember when we worked down here, so like I only did slip stitches when I was working with the yellow, right? When I was working with the blue, we just did stockinette. Well, this time, no matter what color you're working with, you're going to slip stitches every single row. We are on row 3. So with my color B, I will knit 2, and then I slip 1 with yarn and back. Then I will knit 4, slip 1 with yarn and back, and then knit 4. You do that all the way down, just keep repeating the repeat. All right, I'm going to turn my work, and this is the third difference from this pattern compared to the last pattern that we did. This time, all of the pink stitches are going to be in stockinette. So when I turn and I'm working with pink, I want to make sure I'm purling those stitches. So I will purl all of my pink stitches, slip that stitch there, right? I'm slipping it as if to purl with yarn in front. I don't have to move my yarn back to the back, right? Because I'm purling, so my yarn is already over there waiting for me to use it. And I simply just purl, slip with yarn in front, and then purl the last 2. Can you see how this is working up? So you are literally slipping stitches every single row. And if you noticed, we're always slipping the stitch right after the stitch that was on the needle that was the same color as what you're using. So for example, this next row, I will be using my main color, and I will end up slipping that stitch right there and that stitch right there. Let's see if we actually do that. Okay, so I'm going to get my main color in my hand, and we are on row 5. So I will knit 3, 1, 2, there's that, 3, and I slip 1. So I'm slipping 1 after the color that I have on my needle. Now I will knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, see what I mean? And slip 1. And then I just keep doing that to the end. I finish with my knit 3, turn my work, and don't forget, this time, anytime we're using our main color on the wrong side, we want those to be garter stitch. So that means as I turn my work here and I'm on my wrong side, I'm going to knit these stitches. So I will knit each of these stitches, except for when I get to the pink, and that one I will slip with yarn in front, just like that, like it's right here. And keep going. See how this works up? Now we're going to take a peek at what it looks like on the other side, right? Because remember, we talked about it being the slip stitches are on a diagonal, but can you start to tell that it looks like a little stair step going on with the stitches? It's starting to really take shape. So now I'm going to grab my color B, continue on, and the theory still applies. I will end up slipping that stitch because it's the first stitch after the pink, and I'll end up slipping that one. Okay, so here we go. We're on row 7. Row 7 has us knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, slip 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, slip 1. 1 and 2. Kind of neat, right? Turn our work. We know that we want to keep our pink stitches in stockinette for this section. So I will purl my pink, slip my main color, and then continue on purling my pink. I'll do this all the way down the row. And I do want to mention that it is very important that you maintain this stockinette stitch for the pink and garter stitch for the main color, or the blue here in this case, because it does mimic the same row gauge as what you're getting down here when we did garter stitch right here with our color A, and then stockinette stitch with our main color. Sort of same thing is going on over here. Of course, there's more garter stitch than just the 2 stitches here, but it's giving the same sort of feel. Okay, so it's important you do maintain that stockinette and that garter. But you can clearly see here that it's really starting to create that stair step. Once again, you'll notice that I will have the slipped stitch right after the color where it's the same yarn color as I'm using. But I want to point out that you will continue working through the pattern as it's written, and you will do this until both of these panels measures the distance that's written in the pattern. Okay, so make sure you're following along with the number that pertains to the size you are making. I want to go ahead and I'm going to work on row 10 as I'm talking to you about the rest of this. But as you follow along and you get to the correct size where both panels are, you want to make sure you end after a wrong side row. So right here, I'm on a wrong side row, and I'm going to end after a wrong side row. And what will happen here is I will turn my work, and I'm going to go ahead and I would break my main color, and I would continue on and work 2 rows of stockinette with my color B and then bind off. Now, I want to make sure that my 2 little swatch panels here are the correct size, like they're both about equally sized out. So I'm going to go ahead and complete row 11 and 12 and 13 and 14, and then I'm going to walk you through how to do that finishing that I just spoke about. So let me get through right here is row 11, turn my work. I'm going to do row 12, and without even looking at row 12, I know that I will be purling these stitches because they're my color B, right? And I want to keep those in stockinette. So I turn, I keep these in stockinette, slip the opposite color, and just keep going. And I do want to end with my main color on my needles because the very last 2 rows I want to work, right, are with my color B. So it just seems logical to me that I want to finish with the last 2 rows that I have on my needles with my main color. So I knit 2, slip, knit 4, 2, 3, 4, and then slip. You can see this really starts to just get going after a while. You don't have to think too much about it. Turn my work, and because I know that I want my main color in garter stitch, I know that these stitches are all going to be knit, with the exception of the one that I'm slipping here. And that one I slip with yarn in front as if to purl. And here we go. So this lets me end after doing a wrong side row with my main color, okay? And I can go ahead, cut my main color. Make sure you leave a nice little tail so that way you can weave it in later, okay? Turn my work, and this is where I want to do 2 more rows of just stockinette stitch. So I'm going to use my color B and just do 2 rows of stockinette. So I'm not doing any slip stitches for this. 2 rows of stockinette, and then we will bind off stitches. There we go. And now I want to bind off. So I have the right side facing me, and I'm going to bind off. We will not be using any special bind off. We just want to make sure that we do not bind our stitches off too snug. So as you knit the first 2 stitches, make sure they are the same size as your needle here in your right hand. Take your left hand needle, grab that back stitch, and have it jump and up and over that front stitch. Don't pull this yarn tight because that will tighten this up too much, and we don't want that. So now we just knit 1 more stitch, have the back stitch jump up and over the front, and we continue on. Knit 1 more, back jumps over the front. Knit 1 more, back jumps over the front. If you find your stitches are getting too snug, if you have a larger needle that you can hold in your right hand, you could always work the bind off with the larger needle in your right hand, and that will make those stitches a little bit bigger. But the best thing I have found right here is just being consistent in the size of your stitches and make sure that they're not too tight. And you can do that by not pulling that yarn there very tight as you knit each one. When you get to the very end here, we're going to snip our color B, the big pink color here. Again, I will make sure I leave some yarn, and I will give that a pull, just like so. And you can see right here that I have my second panel and my first panel. They're approximately the same size, right? They're approximately the same size. And I have this nice garter stitch happening in both of the panels, but the pattern stitch is different. Down here we have the checker. Up here we have sort of these zigzag lines going that are so much fun to make. And that's it for week 2, you guys. So what I need you to do, like I said, is make sure that you continue on through the stitch pattern for this week, and you're going to measure the entire panel. So both the first week and the second week, you'll measure this whole piece and make sure it measures the distance that's written in the pattern for the size you are making. Do the finishing just like what I did, and sit back, relax, and I will see you soon for the week 3 instructions, where we will be adding on some length along the row edge of this panel, and it's going to be really fun. You're going to be mesmerized by the construction of this piece. It's really cool how it all turns out. So don't forget, take pictures of your work as you're going along and share with us on social media. We love seeing your work. And have fun, everybody. As you know, this is the Fall Stitch Along for Joann and Yarnspirations. I'm Marley Bird, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye, guys.